Hi, I'm Ksenia, and thank you for joining me for this week's Astro Weather Report. I'm your Astro Weather Girl, here to talk all about the fascinating astrological weather that is unfolding for us in the week ahead. So thanks very much for joining me. Before I get into the weather, I want to share with you about an incident that occurred for me earlier last week, and I feel it's very important for me to share this message, especially in the light of what's happening in the skies at the moment. So last Friday morning, as Venus was going invisible, I was asleep in my bed and about to wake up, and as we often do, we can have dreams just before we wake, and then they remain with us. They're very vivid, they're very strong, they're very powerful with us, sometimes lasting with us all day long, the energy of the dream. Well, I had one of those dreams first thing in the morning, Friday morning, just last week. And it was a dream, not very pleasant, that I was being abducted for sex trafficking. And it was just left a bad taste in my mouth, as you can well imagine. Anyhow, the morning went on, and I sort of thought to myself, oh, Venus is going invisible today. This is kind of ironic that Venus, the planet that represents women, has gone invisible, and I've had this dream about a victimization scenario for a woman, me, in my dream. And then I received a beautiful message, almost straight away actually, from one of my mentor team. I have a beautiful collective of women. We support each other, we get behind each other's projects. And this was a message from my glorious friend Paula, who runs the Lunar Project. Check it out online, Google the Lunar Project. She's fabulous. So I received this message from Paula, and she was just saying, I just wanted to encourage you this morning, let you know I've got your back. We're all in this as a group, our little mentor team, and we look out for one another, and I just want you to know I love you. So glad you're in my life, and I've got your back. And it was just that beautiful piece of uplift that I needed. And I sent a message back to Paula, and I said, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. You've no idea how perfect that timing was, because I've just had this dream. I felt quite upset by it, and I'm really feeling that, considering Venus is going invisible, we all need to be remembering to pray for women right now. And so getting your encouraging support from my inner circle of women mentors and backers and my network really meant a lot. Paula then replied to me and said, my goodness, you won't believe this. I had a similar dream this morning as well. So I shared about that on my Facebook and Instagram page, and lo and behold, many women said, I had a dream like that myself. Yes, I've just had a dream like that myself. So I have been moved to share that with you this morning. Venus went invisible last week. She's going to remain visible until the 13th of June. Theoretically, she could be late. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in the light of that, and I'm wearing my rose quartz, which symbolizes Venus for the duration of this invisibility. In the light of that, and in the light of some topics that are going to come out when we talk about the eclipse, I felt it was very important to talk with you this morning about this dream that I'd occurred, and to let you know, please join with me during Venus's invisibility in praying for women across the world. Now, not just people who are being exploited, not just women who are being exploited or abused or taken advantage of in any way, but also pray for the women leaders that we have around the world, for the women in positions of power around the world. Let's uphold all of the feminine energy, and let's indeed pray for the men as well and their feminine sides to become more in tune with who they are, to feel into their feminine sides, because Venus is not just, she does rule women, but every person has a feminine side, so she's applicable for everyone in that regard. So I really felt called to share that we, during Venus's invisibility, need to be praying and lifting the energy of the softer side of ourselves, the plight of women, the strength of women, the compassionate, feminine, forgiving, loving, kind nature up, and raising the vibration of that right now, especially with what might be to come through this eclipse season and the remaining 6 to 7 months left of 2020. It is very important. So do join with me daily. I'm praying daily for this, particularly until the 13th of June. Now, in the light of that, Venus has gone invisible last week, and she will be conjunct exactly with the Sun on June the 3rd. Here they are together in the sign of Gemini. So they're going to be conjunct together, and from that point on, from the 3rd of June on, Venus is going to begin her journey towards becoming the morning star. She's been the evening star. You've probably seen her in the sky over the last couple of months, setting in the west just after sunset. Now she's making her journey towards becoming the morning star. She will rise just before the sun and be most bright and visible in the morning. And this is, as I said, this process is beginning from the 3rd of June. Now she's not going to be visible until the 13th because she will still be in the glare of the sun up until the 13th of June. Now theoretically, they're expecting her to rise. We are expecting her to rise on the 13th of June and become visible again. Now, sometimes, though, Venus can be late. Don't ask me why, because I haven't had time to research into why Venus sometimes appears later than anticipated, later than expected. But we would be well advised. In fact, my glorious colleague Krasi, who I adore with all my heart, she's wonderful. Do get a reading with Krasi if you haven't done so already. But Krasi, in one of her recent videos, shared that if Venus rises on time, we can expect blessings in society, monetarily, with love, with beauty and aesthetics, all the things, and with the feminine principle, all the things that Venus is in charge of. If Venus rises on time on the 13th, if she's visible that day, or even we can allow a couple of days afterwards, visible as the morning star, we know, big thumbs up, everything's going to be okay. But should Venus rise late, a week after she was expected to or more, then we know that things are going to be full of upheaval regarding whatever it is that Venus rules, which is women, love, money, aesthetics, beauty. On Earth, there will be upheavals with those things if Venus rises later, or becomes visible rather, later than expected. This is known as the heliacal rising of Venus as the morning star. So I would encourage you to get out under the morning skies if you can wake up early enough and it's not too bitterly cold. It's now winter in Australia, so if you can stomach that, get out there under the skies in the early morning, just as sun's about to rise, and look for Venus. Let's all pray under the early morning skies for the visibility of Venus to be on time. Let's all be present and lift that energy of Venus up at this time on Earth. And goodness knows, given the way 2020 has been going, we could really use a mass energy uplift in that regard. So do join me. I'm intending to do this from the 13th of June until she appears in the sky as the morning star. So do join me in watching for the heliacal rising of Venus. Now, Venus will, once she does rise, she is going to be visible as the morning star until the 13th of December. And so get ready. We're going to be enjoying her morning glory until that period. So she will be with us in that presence as a morning star until December, for the rest of the year, essentially. So something to look forward to and enjoy. Now, according to ancient sources, the morning star of Venus had more of not a masculine quality, but more of the strong feminine quality, not the romanticized, sort of lovey-dovey, warm, embracing, that sort of feminine energy. That was Venus as the evening star, but Venus as the morning star is very different. She is the energy, we could even sort of say she's sort of the goddess Diana, that feminine energy, the goddess of war and the huntress. I'm using my own interpretation there. I'm not saying that Venus in any ancient culture was associated with Diana, Venus as the morning star. But we're looking as Venus as the morning star as the stronger expression of femininity, the independent expression of Venus's femininity. So we're going to be seeing this present now, stronger women, activated women, I believe, from now until the end of the year, with Venus as the morning star. So that's my little piece about Venus and her invisibility. If you would like to know more about Venus and her retrograde motion, because she is going, to our eyes here, backwards in the sky right now, and to a point where she will turn direct, This is all in play right now, and if you want to know more about that process, it's very interesting. I've got a video all about that, and you can check it out at the link that I'll put to that video. Now on to the rest of the weather, and the one that everybody's talking about. You've probably already watched a video on it, so what I hope to share, I hope can add to the information you already have about this week's eclipse that's occurring on the 5th to the 6th of June, depending where you are in the world. Now, some factors about this eclipse. Let me just spell it out, all the astrological and astronomical factors here. We've got the eclipse occurring. It is a full moon eclipse, which means the moon sits opposite the sun, and it's occurring in Gemini at around 14 to 15 degrees of the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius. The moon will be full in the sign of Sagittarius. And if you watched my video from 2 weeks ago all about the new moon in Gemini, you'll know we've been on a 2-week building process heading towards this full moon. So do check out that video as well if you want a bit more background detail to what's been going on as we build to this momentous event. And so we have the sun and the moon, 14, 15 degrees of Gemini, Sagittarius, 15 degrees to be exact. And at the same time, we have the nodes up here. The nodes are what causes eclipses, and the nodes are sitting at 29 degrees of Gemini and Sagittarius. Now, when we have a full moon or a new moon falling within proximity of the nodes, it triggers an eclipse. Now, some eclipses are stronger because they're closer to the nodes, and some eclipses not quite so strong because they are further away. So this eclipse is quite a ways away. You know, we're looking at roughly 14, 15 degrees away from the nodes that are causing the eclipse to occur. Because the full moon is falling quite a ways away from the eclipse, we are entering into a period of 3 eclipses. Essentially, and I'm going to talk more about these in coming videos, but essentially there is a full moon eclipse going on right now, this week, on the 5th, and then there will be another eclipse 2 weeks later, much closer to the nodes, and then there will be a third eclipse when the sun and the moon are further out into Cancer, and that will be a full moon. So full moon eclipse now, then we're going to have a new moon eclipse, which is a solar eclipse, and then another lunar eclipse such as we're having this week, 2 weeks after that. So we're in for a great succession of eclipses now. And this is a year, 2020, when we're having 6 eclipses occur in the 1 year, and this is rare. This does not happen often. Usually we get 4 eclipses on average. Sometimes we can get up to 7 eclipses. That's the most. So 6 eclipses is quite an unusual thing, and this is why this has been a stellar year for a memorable year that we'll be talking about for eons to come. Partly because there's 6 eclipses, but also because of all this song and dance that's occurring over in Capricorn and Aquarius as well. But that's another story, not what we're looking at today. So this is another of the 6 eclipses. In fact, this eclipse is the second of the eclipses that falls this year. It's also the second penumbral eclipse that is occurring as well. Now, what's a penumbral eclipse? Well, it has to be a full moon lunar eclipse, and the sun, earth, and moon, they line up, but not quite accurately enough to be a partial eclipse. And so the penumbral term refers to the shadow of the earth that will be moving across the moon. It's actually very difficult visibility-wise to distinguish between a normal full moon and a penumbral eclipse full moon. So a lunar eclipse is a full moon, okay? And the alignment is a little bit imperfect due to the distance that the sun and the moon fall from the nodes. You can see here, there's quite a distance. So because of that distance, it's a penumbral eclipse. Not quite close enough to be a partial eclipse, a penumbral eclipse. So what's going to happen is the earth, which we'll represent in the middle here, the sun shines its light to the moon that reflects back to us on earth. That's what we see in a full moon. And because of this not quite bang on alignment that's going on, the earth in the middle is only going to partially block the light of the sun falling on the moon, and this blockage occurs with the penumbral outer shadow of the earth. So the penumbral shadow is, or the penumbra as it's called, the shadow of the earth is the outer edge will fall on the moon, just so very faint outer edge. Now, if these guys were more lined up with the nodes, then you'd get a far more intense shadow from the central core, if you like, of the earth falling on the moon, and you would actually visibly see the shadow fall across the moon. It's not going to be like that this time. The penumbra of the earth is the outer shadow. It's a bit fainter. In fact, it might be almost indistinguishable. So if you're living in the eastern edge of South America, most of Asia, Europe, Africa and Australia, as well as Australasia, you will theoretically be able to see this eclipse or be under this eclipse, but you probably won't recognize it as being an eclipse because it's only a penumbral eclipse, not a full partial eclipse where the shadow is strong on the moon. So it might be quite indistinguishable. However, it's still going to be there, and I would encourage everybody to, well, in ancient times they discouraged people from going out and viewing the eclipse because it was considered to be detrimental to do so and unhealthy for you to do so. So if you live in any of those countries, don't be tempted to go out, watch it on the telly, watch it on the internet or something, but don't be tempted to go out and actually physically sit under the energy of the eclipse because it's not healthy to do so. This moon is also known as, I'm going to read the list here, a strawberry moon, a rose moon, a hot moon, or a mead moon. And these names come from ancient traditions that people aligned in ancient cultures aligned to a certain stage when the moon reached its fullness at a certain time of year. And so they correlated these ancient names to the appearance of the moon, what it looked like at that time of year when they had a full moon, this time in the month of June. They correlated the names that were given to the full moon as representational of what the moon looked like and also what was going on in their lives at the moment. So obviously strawberry moon, in the northern hemisphere strawberries are abundant at the moment, or should be, and so the strawberry moon is reflected with the June moon. The rose moon, sometimes the moon does appear to be a rosy or strawberry in hue, but also roses are out in June in the northern hemisphere. So named after those northern hemispheric influences, we get the strawberry moon, the rose moon, etc. And that happens every June. But back to this eclipse. So let me just draw for you what the configuration is like. We have here, the opposition between the Sun conjunct with Venus, who is currently invisible, remember, and opposing, I'll neaten that up, opposing the moon, giving us a full moon effect. Not only that, but we have Mars down here at 16 degrees of Pisces, and a bit awkward here, and then we've got Neptune at 20 degrees of Pisces. Both these guys, particularly Mars, are making square aspects to the eclipse because, as I mentioned, the eclipse is roughly at 15 degrees. So because of that, we've got a square aspect coming. That's better, isn't it? A square aspect coming from Mars and Neptune to both the Sun and the Moon. Now, this is going to be very interesting in what unfolds for us in the week ahead. The weeks ahead, I should also point out as well. Yes, the eclipse is going to have a mind of its own, just like my board here. Okay, so let's explore what it means. This is a T-square shape that will be forming to create the energies of this eclipse. Now, a T-square is challenging. It doesn't matter if you've got it in your chart or if it's a transiting shape appearing in your chart, or like this, it's forming in the sky as part of an eclipse. We're all going to feel it on Earth. Well, there's going to be challenges. And you have to look at what's going on in 2020 to know that that's the case. But whenever there's a T-square in a chart, natally or otherwise, such as this, it's an indicator that there is a potential for great success. There is a potential for success to come out of the events of this eclipse, okay? And this potential is going to be driven by an inner tension that we all feel as human beings. It's going to be driven by a determination and an inner resolve to make the necessary changes that need to happen in life in order to progress as a human species, as a humankind on the earth. So this is going to be very much felt in the individuals, you and I, but also the masses. The mass effect that we're kind of already seeing going on planet Earth right now. It needs to happen. We're feeling into the energy of the eclipse. On that note, I should also add that eclipses are active, particularly lunar eclipses, active the week before and the week after the eclipse occurs. Lunar eclipses also, they are the eclipses that we see triggers occurring more often than not in the week before or week after. Solar eclipses can play out for up to 6 months, and they do. We tend to see their effect over time. But lunar eclipses are a bit more click your fingers and there we are. It's all on for young and old, all happening. So lunar eclipses also represent the masses and effects occurring for the masses, for the hoi polloi, for people on Earth. Solar eclipses that occur, which will be occurring in about 2 weeks' time, they tend to affect, and remember they have an effect over a 6-month period, they tend to affect the leadership situations, because the sun has to do with leadership, and the sun has to do with sort of father figures, authority figures in that regard, kings, that kind of thing. So that's the effect. So right now we're going through what is an eclipse that's going to affect the masses more. But back to the influence of this T-square on the eclipse. It's very activating. In fact, Vedic astrology says that it can, in a natal chart, it can lead to success on a material level because you're driven. There's an inner push, like I said, an inner tension, an inner drive to make something happen. So we can expect that the masses now are going to be very desirous of making something happen, bringing about necessary change that's probably been long overdue. So this could be very exciting. It could be ultimately long-term, very much needed change that's fulfilling in the long term. However, we've got to remember that with T-squares come challenges. So there's going to be obstacles, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be blockages and restrictions that we'll have to sort of get in the scrum with, if you know what I mean, if you're familiar with rugby and that sort of thing. Get your head down and let's all push into this. So there is very much that energy that's present of a rugby scrum with this current eclipse for the masses, and maybe for you as an individual as well. However, a T-square also gives more energy towards accomplishing. You can expect results from this energy, especially with Mars involved. Now, Mars is creating tension, yes, but Mars is action. Mars is let's do, let's go, let's start. And that energy is very strong in this eclipse. We can expect change, we can expect something new to start. Mars is an instigator, it wants to make things happen. There'll be no sitting back, sitting on your laurels, twiddling your thumbs. It's time. This eclipse indicates it is time for action. Now I want to briefly mention, I'm going to talk for each sign about how we can deal with this energy personally. How can we how can we all navigate this to our greatest good, for our greatest capacity? How can we work with this energy in the best possible way as an individual? Yes, we're all going to need to take action. We might need to, attend some protests peacefully. We might need to take a stand, and I'm all for that, an advocate for that where necessary. But individually, in our own private individual lives, which is what I'm passionate about as an astrologer, how does this affect my personal life? We are all going to need ways to navigate this with more grace. Because let's face it, Mars energy can be a little brash, a little rude, a little warlike. Mars is the god of war. Although fortunately, Mars, the Roman god of war, was much more noble in character than the Greek god of war, which was Aries, who was something of a hothead. So in that sense, Mars energy is it's the fighter for a just cause. So we will be energized towards doing this, but we need to watch out for rashness, impulsiveness, going off half-cocked, that sort of thing, and aggression. And let's face it, he's the god of war. So we might see war for a just cause occurring. Keep that in mind. This is not war because I want to be a total prick. It's war because something needs to be fought for. We need to harness our valor, our courage, our sense of rightness now under this eclipse. So I'm going to talk about, when I go through each sign, I'm going to talk about the way to navigate this in the most effective way for yourself. Basically, we're looking at the polarity point for Mars that indicates that way out in a T-square. So we'll be exploring that. For everybody, it's in the energy of Virgo, but it will be differently displayed for each person due to the sign that falls in. But Virgo energy is service at the highest level. Virgo energy is practical application. Virgo energy is helping and healing situations, fixing imbalanced situations. This is the energy that as humanity we're going to need to harness now. We see an imbalanced situation, we're like, right, how can I help? How can I heal? How can I restore and resolve things in some way? That is the polarity point that from Mars's position right now. Mars is in Pisces. The polarity point's in Virgo. That is the way to navigate this T-square. In a nutshell, if you've got a T-square, the healing is always in the empty zone, opposite the point. So Virgo energy is our source of help right now. It's our tactic right now to dealing with the angst, the war, the fighting, the rah of Mars involved in this T-square and eclipse, okay? So just to repeat again, practical service, helping other people, healing situations and restoring. Virgo energy wants to perfect things, to make things right where things are not right, where things are wrong, where things are out of balance. And Virgo wants to be proactive and grounded and service-oriented towards making things right again. So we're going to be looking to do that as a collective. You might be able to apply that to your individual life as well. Now, the people who are going to experience this eclipse most powerfully, most strongly, most in-depth are people, obviously, with any planets in Gemini, any planets in Sagittarius, any planets around 15 degrees of Pisces or Virgo. They will be obviously most affected by this eclipse, particularly if you have planets around 15 degrees. You can give or take 5 degrees. But they're going to be feeling it. People with planets there are going to feel it the most strongly, most powerfully. And it will all depend on what that planet rules for you in your sign, in your chart, your natal chart rather. So I obviously can't go into that for everybody. I'll be here all day. But it will depend what planet is getting triggered as to how it's likely to affect you and in what way it's likely to affect you. I will just point out too that eclipses, all eclipses, are designed to help us get towards where we need to go, our destiny. Just a little bit of Eclipse 101 here. The south node of the moon correlates to our past, where we've come from. The north node of the moon correlates to where we're going, moving forward, moving ahead. It's our destiny point. And so there is an energy with an eclipse of letting go of the past so that you can move into your future, move into the destiny. Now, sometimes that comes through an opportunity landing in our lap in order to take us to our destiny. Sometimes it comes through a kick in the pants. Everybody who's had a recent reading with me talking about eclipses has probably heard me describe this, but I'll give you 2 scenarios that occurred in my life. One was way back, many years ago, when I had an eclipse on my ascendant. The ascendant runs from the house of self to the house of others, marriage. On that eclipse, a week later, I met my first husband. And he also had an eclipse on his ascendant. We had the same rising sign, same ascendant, and boom, we met one another. It was meant to be eclipse. Something landed in my lap that took me towards my destiny. If I had not met that man, I would not be an astrologer today. I would not have 3 children or be a single mum. I would not have moved in the circles I moved in. I would not have grown and expanded and become a bigger person internally, not physically, I hope, because of that eclipse that occurred that brought us together. There we went on our destiny, and a total change of direction for my life because of that eclipse event. Similarly, back in 2018, I had an eclipse on my sun, which rules the house of work and service in my life. Lo and behold, a week after that rather nasty little eclipse, that I lost a job, and it was terrible circumstances, very uncomfortable, very cruel kind of situation because of that eclipse though. I had a kick in the pants that got me back on track to the type of work, the type of service that I have been called to do in my life. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for both eclipses because they changed my life, ultimately for the better. And we have to keep the long range view in mind when we're talking about eclipses. They will either kick your pants to get you on track with your destiny, or they'll give you a gift to help you align more with your destiny. So if you're doing your dharma, if you're in the zone, if you're doing what you're meant to do and you love it, and life is where you want it to be and it just feels right, then you know that the eclipse is likely to be supportive for you in some way. But if you're a bit like, well, I'm just a machine in the treadmill here and I'm just doing what I have to do to get by, well, the eclipse could very well give you a kick in the pants to help you align with what you're meant to be doing, what your soul incarnated to experience. That's what eclipses do. So if you have a personal planet falling around one of these points, you can expect to either get a kick in the pants or a blessing falling from the sky. Okay, so just Eclipse 101 for you there. As I said, you can also expect a change to occur, to come into your life, maybe a person or an event or a circumstance of some sort that comes into your life and changes your life the week before or the week after an eclipse. If that's what you have, personal planets at any of these points, because the eclipse, lunar eclipses trigger things to happen rather swiftly for us. But keep in mind, tempers are at boiling point with this eclipse. The square from Mars makes things tense. Not only that, but a T-square makes things very tense as well. There's this inner tension, and Mars brings our anger levels right up. I was watching the news the other day, looking at what was going on in America right now, and my anger levels, regardless of the eclipse, were way high. We won't go into that. But there is just so much going on planet Earth right now that is going to perhaps lead to a tipping point of people's anger, people's rage because of this eclipse and the square by Mars and Venus. Venus energy is invisible right now. Remember I said in the beginning of this to pray, to lift up the energy of the feminine on planet Earth because she is missing from the sky right now. The energy of forgiveness, the energy of kindness, the energy of love. So we need to really lift that energy high so that it is not lost under this eclipse effect. We've also got, and to a lesser degree, but will still be very influential because Neptune is an outer planet and really very strong, really packs a punch. So Neptune is playing into this, even though she's not at is not as close in degree, is at 20 degrees, so that the orb is not bang on tight, but it's still enough to pack a punch because Neptune is powerful. And a square aspect from Neptune usually indicates the harder themes of Neptune being at play right now, which is deceit, having the wool pulled over our eyes, things like fakeness, covert behavior, especially when there's a conjunction with Mars. Mars is a strategist, so there might be covert behaviors going on behind the scenes that are strategized by people. So we can expect that in our personal lives, and we might see it playing out also at a very strong international level, global level as well. Now, another thing that's very interesting about this eclipse is that the full moon here in Sagittarius is occurring in the constellation of Hercules, actually. And Hercules as a constellation is linked to large-scale events for the masses, right? So large-scale events that play out across humanity. And Hercules is also a constellation that has to do with dangerous, passionate inspiration. So an inspiration to do something passionately and fervently is the nature of this Hercules constellation. Hercules constellation is also brings out strong character traits. And we'll see that in the, in people right now, that the strength of character will be coming out in people more and more and more, and a tenacity, like determination and invigoration in a very tenacious way that will be coming out in humanity, but also in individuals as well, and in individual circumstances. It is conjunct a fixed star, and this fixed star is Ras Al-Gethi. I hope I say that right. I'm not the best at pronouncing the fixed stars, but yes, it's about Rasalgethi for anyone who wants to know. And it's at 15 degrees of Sagittarius, this star. And with difficult aspects being made to Mars in this eclipse, it's going to cause a lot of irritation for women. Yet another reason to uplift women in prayer and remember women right now. So my source material by Ebert and Hoffman suggests that women might suffer under this particular eclipse. And so again, another reason with Venus invisible and the moon conjunct this particular fixed star, that we pray for the feminine energy on planet Earth in all of us. So Mars can cause irritation for women when it's making a difficult aspect in a significant configuration like this. But it has connections for everyone with regard to boldness and a drive to gain power. So we might see a lot of power plays coming because of the conjunction with this star. So do watch out for that. So coupled with Venus's invisibility, it's time to really pray for Earth. If you haven't been doing that already, it is time. So we can expect that the influence of that fixed star is going to see some interesting events. The eclipse is going to be superseded, though. This eclipse, as I said, a lunar eclipse triggers things very quickly, so the week before, the week after, but then we'll move into the new moon eclipse that'll happen 2 weeks later, and then 2 weeks after that, there's going to be an eclipse, another lunar eclipse on the 5th of July, and that eclipse will then supersede the effects of this eclipse. So we're just beginning, okay? This eclipse will be in play for roughly a month, and then we're going to get a superseded eclipse in Sagittarius again, with the nodes in Sagittarius Gemini again after June the 5th. So how is this going to play out? Well, eclipses are really anybody's guess. In a nutshell, the energy of an eclipse, as everybody probably knows who watches my videos, that an eclipse is mythologically connected to a dragon that's been cut in half. It's insatiable at one end. The north node wants, where's the north node? More. The south node wants to excrete because it's the tail end of the dragon. But here in Australia, we have so many reptiles. If you haven't seen a snake and you've lived in Australia for many years, then you haven't been getting out enough. But I grew up on a farm, lots of unfortunate, reptiles I've seen cut in half, and it's not a pretty sight. And when you've got a reptile that's just been cut in half, like the dragon, a reptile cut in half, it flips and flops and twists and turns for about a good 10 minutes before, that's the end. That is what we can expect with an eclipse too. You don't know which way it's going to flip-flop. You don't know where you should stand. You just stand well back, because let me tell you, a snake can still bite you when it's dead. So you stand well back from the reptile that's been cut in half, and you let it play out how it needs to play out, and you keep in mind with an eclipse that there is a long-term purpose here. It's not just, oh my God, I've lost my job this week, eclipse on my sun like I had. It's not that. It is much more, what is the end game here? What's the long term? Well, for me, kick my pants, get me doing astrology full on, deep dive into it, do my business. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me, really. So what is the end game here? You stand well back, you take a big picture view of what is going on, something's being let go of, something is being embraced, and there's a lot of tension and angst that needs to play out for that to manifest, for it to come to a head, for it to actually progress and move toward the ultimate destiny in your life personally, but also in humanity. So how might this play out? It's anyone's guess, but because of Mars's involvement, we could have a stab, an educated guess, stab if you like, at the idea of it having to do with maybe war. Remember, it would be war for a just cause, Mars. Look at the protests that are happening in America. It's already happening. We're in the energy of the pre-eclipse, like the week before the eclipse. It's going on. Tempers are at boiling point, a la Mars, and rightly so. I'd be protesting also if I was in America. Mars energy here is giving, sort of laying the groundwork for fireworks, for friction, for war that comes out of this eclipse. Venus is laying the groundwork because she's invisible and she's involved in the eclipse for troubles with finances, lack of love present on the earth. Maybe you might feel this personally too if you've got a personal planet involved here. And the Neptune energy is laying the groundwork for our compassionate nature. Neptune is compassionate, unconditional love at the highest level. But because Neptune is being squared by this eclipse, it's kind of, and conjunct with Mars, it's usurped by deceit and sneaky behavior. So anything that manifests as that on the earth right now is, what we can expect to see. But keep in mind, it is designed to take us into our human destiny at a personal level and a collective level. Okay, so we don't want to keep repeating myself with all of that, but that's what we can expect. So we're already seeing it. The riots in America, or the protests, the justified, fighting for a just cause is happening in America. That is what we can expect to see more of throughout this eclipse. So how do we cope? How do we cope with this? Let's go through all signs and see the strategy for dealing most effectively in our personal lives. I'm not talking collectively now. I'm talking about our personal lives. How can we deal with this most effectively? Why don't we start with Virgo? You guys can go first this week. So Virgo guys, you guys have the polarity point for Mars falling in your first house. So your strategy for coping with this energy is to look after the self, to practice self-care, to practice service and kindness and healing on your own personal life. And if you do that, don't feel like, I should be out there helping other people. And yeah, of course, we all can do that. But don't neglect the self in doing so, Virgo people, because your vibrational energy has to be high. And if you're out there doing your Virgo thing, serve, give, practical this, that, and the other, and you burn out, then you're not helping to lift the energy of humanity to a higher point, which God only knows we need right now. So practice self-care, Virgo people. Don't burn yourself out trying to help and fix and resolve and perfect. Take time for you. So whatever that looks like for you, it might be take the chance to do a bit of a hobby, or to go have a soak in the bath, do something for your body, a soak in the bath, paint your fingernails, or beautify yourself. First house energy, where it's focused on the external, the body, the physical experience. To look after you right now, it's very essential that you raise your vibration right now to help all of humanity, and that's the best way that you can help going into this eclipse energy. Okay, Libra rising people. Well, the polarity point for Mars for you is in the 12th house, and Libra people, can I just encourage you to pray? That's your role in all of this, in this eclipse energy, to pray, to lift up others with compassion, with kindness, in prayer, or send loving energy. You might like to do some sort of spiritual practice, such as energy balls. I don't know if anyone's come across that, rubbing your hands together really, really fast and pulling back to create a ball of warm energy that you can almost feel tangibly, and sending it out with love to somebody who needs to receive that ball of energy, love and light. That's a spiritual practice that can be very beneficial. But also for yourself, Libra people, 12th house, Virgo, polarity point to the T-square here of this eclipse. For you guys, I would encourage you to have some time out, have a bit of an escape, jump into a novel or a movie, do some restoration through escaping, retreating, having time out, doing some prayer, doing some meditation. Any 12th house energy like that. We can't obviously travel overseas, which is a 12th house thing right now, but we can go into our self-care mode through spirit, through creative expression as well, and through retreating. So heal, offer healing to others through, like I said, prayer, meditation, energy work, that kind of thing. And also look after you and self-care, yes, but do that through creative expression. The 12th house is the highest level of creative expression, and so, you know, doing a painting, writing a poem, writing a story, you know, anything that's not practical. Well, actually it's Virgo, so it could be practical. You could paint a mural on your son's bedroom wall. There's a bit of practical creative expression. That could also be very much the nature of this this energy. That could be really just what you need to do to cope with this tense boiling point energy of the eclipse. And indeed, 12th house has to do with the bedroom. So go for it. Paint a mural on the bedroom wall. All right, for Scorpio people, well, the polarity point for the Mars boiling point and the T-square of this eclipse for you guys is falling in the 11th house. So it's through 11th house things that you will cope best and alleviate the tension and the pressure that comes with this current eclipse. So it's through connection and friendships and networking that you guys are going to be most blessed. So reach out, and that doesn't have to be in person if you don't want to sort of go there, but social connection on social media, write an email to all your friends, or you know, have a WebEx kind of get together, something like that. Any progressive means of doing so are very 11th house. Connection with friends, support for friends, check in on your friends, ring them, you know, is there anything that I can help out with, or just sending love to friends. If you want to pray for friends too, that's important as well under this energy right now as well. But it's through connecting with friends, and here in Australia, I don't know about the rest of the world, but here in Australia we can actually meet up with our friends again. So it might be, you know, going and having that coffee in the park, or having someone round to your house and just sort of having a chance to offload and share and be present with one another, with friendships. That is a real source of healing for this eclipse for you guys. So do reach out to one another in that way. Also, I would just say as well, your goals and dreams and ambitions are an important source of coping mechanism for this eclipse. So you might like to review your dreams and goals. Where were you heading? What were you trying to achieve? How on track are you? You might like to put some time and energy and work into the goals and dreams that you have, the aspirations that you have. And that, if you're watching Tally and you're seeing, oh, everything's going to hell in a handbasket, I'm going to go and work on my new website that I've been developing. So you go, and that's a coping mechanism rather than spiraling down the rabbit hole and ending up, miserable, proverbial, feeling dreadful because of what's going on and feeling like you can't help. Also, though, with Scorpio people, you guys can actually participate. I mean, everybody can. We all should. But any protests, any actions, any getting involved in humanitarian causes, or taking action regarding sort of justice and rightness for the masses is your deal right now. If you're feeling passionate about that, you should go and join in and be part of the activism, because the healing for this eclipse energy for you is in the 11th house of activism and being the rebel with a cause, not without one, but with a cause in this case. And so that is a practical, Virgo is practical way of service that you can offer to the greater human good right now. And I'd encourage you to do that as well if you're so inclined. So, whoa, Sagittarius, well, you've got the full moon in your sign right now, so that's going to be very powerful for you. Anyone with Sagittarius rising is going to really feel this eclipse if they've got their rising degree around about 15 degrees. But the polarity point to all this tension that's present with this eclipse that we can see is actually in your 10th house. So it's by, getting in touch with bosses and having a chat with bosses about maybe a circumstance you're in, or, you get in touch with your boss and say, look, I've seen this going on in the world. How can we help? What can we do? I'd like to head up a team that wants to do X, Y, Z to make a difference, or whatever. But, talking with bosses and collaborating with authority figures, this can be a way out of the energy of this time. At a personal level, if you're not coping, and you want to just sort of tap out for a bit, you can sort of spend some time focusing on your career instead. And that's a healing mechanism for you to cope with this tension of the eclipse. So you might like to, I don't know, depends what your career is. Let's say you're a novelist. Well, you might like to, I always go to that with Sagittarius because it's got to do with publishing. So anyhow, if you're a novelist and you want to spend some time writing, it's a good time to do so. It's going to help you to cope better with the energies that are out and about on planet Earth at the moment. You might have a career in, I don't know, the public service or something like that, and it might be an opportunity for you to focus on some project that you're working on, or the rollout of some new program or something like that that needs to happen. So, and you can really go deep into that, and that can be a source of coping mechanism and healing for you also right now. So in that sense, focusing on career. And if you're not in a professional career, as such, not in an employed career or anything, you can focus on your worldly achievements and the legacy that you want to leave and be known for. That could look like, maybe you want to leave a legacy of, great songs that you've written, or a legacy of poetry, like Emily Dickinson or something. And so you spend some time focusing on this legacy you want to leave, focusing on the worldly achievements that you want to accomplish, and that is a source of coping for you with this energy. And in fact, you can achieve a lot because the tension that this T-square brings can be channeled into your career and be most effective there for you. So Capricorn rising people, well, for you lovely friends, this is putting the polarity point to Mars and the T-square that's involved in this eclipse in the 9th house. So it is through this realm that you can cope best with the eclipse and the energies that it brings. So focus your attention and your energy, guys, on beliefs, and perhaps researching some higher knowledge, perhaps watching some documentaries if you want to on other countries and other cultures, learning about other cultures, digging deep with that sort of thing, researching that sort of thing. It's going to be a source of catharsis for you. You might also actually like to offer some sort of service to people from other cultural backgrounds. So I don't know, maybe there's some Sudanese refugees or something like that in your area, and you can sort of help them out or find ways to support them in some way. So Virgo is service, and it's falling in the 9th house. So service to people from other cultures right now can be a way of coping with this eclipse energy. I would also get in touch with mentors and people who are inspirational figures in your life, or find somebody. It doesn't have to be somebody you personally know. You can look online and find inspirational figures online who you just feel inspired by or encouraged by. Listen to some lectures online that can buoy up your spirits, that can give you a sense of hope and optimism, where otherwise this eclipse might leave you feeling fractious and rageable, if that's even a word. So it's through those realms that you're going to be able to cope best with the energies that this eclipse will be manifesting. For Aquarius rising people, well, this eclipse is going to be falling for you in your 8th house, and it is through 8th house measures that you can cope best with this eclipse, because this is the polarity point to the aggressor in this whole eclipse situation, Mars, plus it's the polarity point for the T-square that's present in this eclipse as well. So your coping mechanisms might be to have a deep dive into mysticism, shamanism, spirituality, doing some shamanic practice, doing some shamanic rituals might be very, very good right now. Exploring those alternative kinds of belief systems. You might also be very blessed perhaps by doing a bit of psychological introspection as well. This is a house of psychology, doing some deep diving into your own psychological issues, and offering service is also a Virgo thing. And with the 8th house Virgo, it's a really good idea to perhaps look at community property. How can you offer service to community property? I mean, does the local swimming pool need its lawn mowed right now? Or, what ways can I help with community property? What ways can I serve with community property? Now that might sound really odd, like, oh, how's that going to help me cope with the eclipse? Well, it's going to direct your energy to the empty point in the sky, and that helps sort of alleviate the tension. And so it might be simply a distraction of your energy that then goes into mowing the lawn at the local swimming pool, or some other communal resource that you help out with and you give your service to. It can be a distraction of your energy that alleviates tension and worry in another realm, but it can also mean that you find some therapeutic healing, 8th house, through, you know, your shamanic ritual, through your I don't know, some sort of a shamanic practice or something like that, or researching it more. To 8th house is research, digging into astrology. Oh, fantastic thing to do for anyone who's Aquarius rising at this time. Learn more about astrology, read books about astrology. 8th house has connections to those occult subjects, things that aren't mainstream, things that are not the familiar paths. So dig deep into those things. You'll find a source of coping mechanism and healing through those things for you during this time. This house also has to do with divorce. So sorting out a divorce can also be helped with this particular placement, and any death or rebirth situation. So if you're going through a situation in life where you know, you can feel one part of you is dying. What I mean by that is a way of life that you've always known is dying and ending. You can focus your attention on that now. Give your love to yourself as you evolve, like the caterpillar coming out, going into the cocoon and then emerging as a butterfly. You might be going through that kind of a transformational experience right now. Give love to yourself as you experience that under this eclipse energy. You might be really transforming and really re-emerging because of the energies that this eclipse brings. Give yourself Virgo energy, self-care, self-love. Healing is the highest level of Virgo energy. Allow space for your own healing in that regard if you're going through a very transformational time in life as well. If you happen to be Pisces rising, well, for you guys, for we guys, especially I might add, if you've got any planets or a rising degree, around 15 degrees of Pisces, you'll probably feel this eclipse quite strongly. And as such, the coping mechanism for you guys is to focus on your 7th house, focus on your relationships, spend time with your loved partners, or, just enjoy the company of the partnerships that you have in life. That can be business partners, can also be sort of marriage partners or contractual relationships. Also, for you guys, enjoy cultural practices, because this is the house for you of refinement and sophistication. So restaurants have recently opened up in Australia. You might like to go out for a fine meal, or you might like to put on a cultural film or something like that at home and enjoy that. And that is going to help alleviate any tenseness, any fractiousness that you might be feeling because of the eclipse. Watch your connections with partners right now. Keep them loving, and pray for partners right now under this eclipse energy. Pray for partners and their feminine expression, which is going to be suffering for all of us, male or female. Our feminine side will be suffering under this eclipse. So do uphold your partners and loved ones through this time with that focus. Any contracts as well. We haven't got Mercury retrograde yet, so you can look at contracts under this. I'm not going to go too much into that. This is it's not a time. It's a time when you can still sign contracts and make agreements and so on. But I would never say that signing contracts is going to be a coping mechanism for eclipse energy. So if you're Pisces rising, give time, energy, and attention to your relationships in life, particularly with significant others, and that will help you balance and find an equilibrium through the tenseness that this eclipse is offering. Okay, Aries rising people. Well, for you lovely friends, the eclipse polarity point, the Mars polarity point and the polarity point of the T-square, in other words, your coping mechanism, your strategy, your tactic for this eclipse is to focus on 6th house things. Get into your work, clean your house, renovate where it needs renovating, paint that wall that's been sitting there needing doing for ages, or focus on service to practical things, cleaning and organizing things. You might like to focus on your health and well-being. This could be a coping mechanism as well. The world's going to hell in a handbasket, but you're out there jogging and keeping fit. Work on your health, your diet, your exercise. Work on ways to serve and heal not only your life and your daily routine, but also look at how you can serve and heal and help other people who are in need. This is a house of service, and that's where for you the best coping mechanism is for this tense time, this energy of the eclipse. So, you know, it might be helping colleagues at work, or people in less fortunate positions than you, people who are maybe homeless and on the street right now, certainly in winter in Australia. Terrible time to be homeless and on the street. So helping people is actually a place you can direct your energy to cope with the world energies that are going on right now. And also animals. Look to help animals in need right now, or love your animals. Just spend some time with your pets. There's a house of pets, so focusing there can actually alleviate the pressure and the tension and the challenge that we might be feeling with the T-square energy that's playing out too. So now for Taurus rising people, well, the polarity point to Mars sits for you, Virgo, as the 5th house. This is the polarity point to Mars, and it's also the polarity point to the T-square that's taking effect with this eclipse. So the way that you can cope best, the way that you can, or where you can direct your energy in order to be able to cope with the tension, the challenges, and the frustrations that this eclipse might bring, is to focus on 5th house things. Hobbies. You know, what do you like to do that brings you joy? What do you like to do that brings you pleasure and a sense of happiness? Maybe it's painting, maybe it's drawing, maybe it's cooking, maybe whatever does it for you, whatever floats your boat. You might like restoring something. I mean, Virgo is very practical, so you might like to sort of, I don't know, do some kind of creative endeavor that has a very practical component, a bit of woodworking or sewing, something like that. Very Virgo 5th house type of energy for those of you who are Taurus rising. So that's where you can direct your attention. If you're not coping with the eclipse and its energy, if it's feeling fractious to you, if you're feeling like you're going a bit bonkers with everything that's going on in the world or in your own private life, Mars, tension and aggression, you can sort of focus there. Now, Virgo is also service, and so through offering service to the 5th house energy, we can also cope better as well. And so my encouragement would be offer service to children in some way, offer service to people that you really love, particularly actual lovers, you know, people who, you know, you're dating or romancing, that sort of thing. In those types of people in your life are a good place to direct your energy of service right now, especially in these tense times, to sort of help one another out. Virgo is healing energy, so you can offer some sort of healing through perhaps your practical hobbies, you know, or practically offer to help someone who's got children. You know, maybe you know somebody and the children, we're still in lockdown or something like that, and the kids can't go to school, but you're allowed to have 5 people in your home, and the mum needs to go to work or something like that. So you take the children, you look after the children for a friend or someone, and offering service to someone who help to someone who needs support with children. Also, this might be offering service through your hobbies, like I said. So maybe if cooking is a hobby that you enjoy, you make a casserole for someone who's struggling or in need. You make you might like to fix a chair or something like that. You might like woodworking, like I said before. So somebody's got a dicky chair and you go and help fix it or restore something. So all of these areas are ways that you can offer service as an antidote, if you like, to the tension and frustration that the eclipse may very well bring at this time in the world. So hobbies again, offering love and care and service and attention really to your lovers and to your children. These are very 5th house things, and finding ways to enjoy life and find pleasure out of life. You Taurus people are very good at that, but that's also a solution. This is the house of joy. So how lovely that your solution to the tensions that we're all experiencing right now through this eclipse will be to find little ways to have a taste of joy in your life. That might be through having your favorite dessert one evening, or it might be whatever brings you joy, really, you know, reading your favorite book, or watching your favorite TV show, or doing just something that brings you a sense of joy and that helps you rebalance the energy that is present for the next 2 weeks under this eclipse. So for Gemini rising people, well, obviously this is a very important eclipse because it's occurring opposite your sign. And so if you happen, as I've said, if you've got lots of planets in Gemini, this is a very telling period of your life, as well as planets in Sagittarius too. But for you guys, it's very serious. Now, if you are Gemini rising at around 15 degrees, this is going to be very important for you. And this whole eclipse period, you can expect change. Listen to my intro, I talked about a lot of that sort of thing. But the polarity point to Mars, the fractious energy of this eclipse, and the polarity point as part of the T-square coping mechanism is for you in the 4th house. So if you're Gemini rising, it's in being in a nice home environment, feeling safe, feeling secure in a home environment. Now, if you happen to be in a place that doesn't feel safe and secure, it might be an idea to look at going somewhere for a time being, the duration of this period until the next eclipse on July the 5th, when this current eclipse will be usurped by the new eclipse on July the 5th. It might be a time for you to go back to the farm or back to visit mum and dad or something, if you can manage that. A place of safety, a place of security, a place where you feel at home and at peace. If you can manage that, it's a good thing to do right now. But if your own home environment is able to be a peaceful place for you, then it's great to spend time there. And I know Gemini people like to be out and about and networking and communicating and seeing what's going on. They like to be where the action is. But it's in your home environment that you're going to find the most peace right now. The most balance for all this energy is found for you in the home environment with your family. And that can be your immediate family, like your children and your husband and your wife, and or it can be with the maternal line as well, going back to where mum came from, or some sort of connection with ancestors and the heritage and the lineage. This is the house of lineage, what you receive from those who've gone before you. So you might find comfort there. You might find you can put your attention there. Maybe, grandma taught you how to knit or something like that. And so it's in knitting that you can find peace right now and sort of sit there and have a knit while you watch the news on the telly and that kind of thing. But, whatever you've inherited from the maternal line can be a source of blessing. And I'm not just talking inheritance financially wise or property wise. It can be any skills you've inherited, any books or ideas or cooking recipes. There's stuff that you've inherited from the maternal line can be a source of therapy and balancing for you during this eclipse season as well. This is also the house of property, so you might be able to really benefit through doing some digging in the garden. You might feel more balanced, more harmonious by getting your hands in the earth. This is an earth sign, Virgo, and it's also physically the house of the physical earth, the land. And so getting your fingers dirty can be a solution. Grow some herbs or, go and dig in the garden. That kind of thing can be very cathartic and balancing and harmonizing for you right now and can help you feel right. You might also be looking to sort of fix some problems because Virgo is to fix problems in your own garden or in your own home right now. And that can be a way to direct your energy so that you can cope, so that you can find peace, so that you can find balance. So, I need to fix that squeaky door, and you go and fix the squeaky door, and that directs your attention away from all the crisis on the news right now or the upheaval. So it's in directing your attention to the home environment, the family lineage, checking in on your mum, and gardens and earth and our property, that you can actually find a sense of peace. If you don't have a property, you might be able to have a pot of herbs on the windowsill, or take a walk in a park or something like that can provide a sense of catharsis for you too. If you're Cancer rising, well, this energy is happening to fall for you in the 3rd house. This is the polarity point to Mars, which is causing a lot of the tension of this eclipse. Plus, it's also the polarity point for the T-square that's creating the friction and the challenges in this eclipse period. I don't know if you can hear the wind howling in under my door there, but it's wild and woolly here in Australia today, just sort of clarifying what that noise in the background is. So Cancer rising people, it's 3rd house that you can find a sense of balance in. So it might be in learning a new skill. It might be in jumping online and doing a webinar or doing a short course or something that can provide you with not a distraction for your mental energy, but a focus for your mental energy that helps to sort of alleviate with what's going on in the world as a result of the eclipse over the coming 2-week period. And that can be or month period actually, until the next lunar eclipse on July the 5th. So that can be very helpful to focus on learning something new. Direct your energy and attention into developing a new skill or a new talent. Maybe you want to learn the piano, or take up some sort of, do an astrology class or something like that. Really good time. Do one of my webinars, please. That'd be lovely. And that might distract and learn your energy to some sort of area of learning that can be very beneficial for you in the long term at this time. This is also the house of siblings, so connecting with siblings can be very helpful, healing, restorative for you, and balancing for you. It's also neighbors, so if you are able to, check in on your neighbors. This is Virgo, of course, too. So Virgo is the sign of service, and it might be to your neighbors, to your teammates and co-workers, maybe to your siblings, that you can offer some sort of service that's needed right now in the world, and that's the area to direct your attention and your efforts and your energy. So in doing that, you can sort of rebalance things that are out of balance with your neighbors, with your teammates, with your co-workers. So also, this is the house of small business, and if you are a Cancer person, you're probably very good at small business. Cancer energy is that of nurturing something such as a small business to being something successful. And small business, you'll be very thorough about. And here is a place you can direct your attention right now as a way out, a coping mechanism. So have you been looking to establish a small business? Have you been curious about small business? Well, now it might be the time to actually look into that. What about developing a website or some social media pages? These type of activities, doing some advertising or marketing for a small business, these things can be very supportive of your journey as a way out of all the tension that's going on in other areas of your chart at this time. And we finally hit on Leo, who have been so patient. Leo people, thank you very much. Leo rising, sun or moon puts the energy of Virgo in the second house, and this is the polarity point for Mars. This challenging energy of the eclipse is coming from the Mars influence, plus the polarity point for the T-square that we're seeing in this influence as well. And this is the way out, if you like, or the tactic, the release, the way we can sort of rebalance all this heavy energy in one area of the chart by focusing on the polarity point. So it's looking at your resources now, Leo rising people, that's going to be of greatest benefit to you. Maybe you might like to restructure your resources or establish some new resources. There might come a time in the next month where you'll be looking at new investment ideas, new investment opportunities that you might like to sort of consider. This is the house of investments and resources and property. So it's also a house that likes to create not so much physical security and protection like we would see in the fourth house with a home and so on, and family and that secure familial kind of energy of the fourth house. But the second house is an energy of security and stability materially. Do I have enough food? Do I have enough warm clothing? Do I have enough food in the cupboard and money in the bank and so on to shore me up for the future? So you'll be readdressing those sorts of things and focusing your energy on where might there be a bit of a lack, and let's balance things out, let's make things right now if there are any financial and resource based inequalities in your life. You might the second house does have connections to anything you can touch, taste, see, hear and smell, particularly to the environment and the earth and the natural environment. You might look at starting a veggie patch or growing a new veggie garden for the spring, or establishing it getting it ready for the spring if you live in the southern hemisphere. We're only 3 months away and counting. It's first day of winter here and I just wish it was over already. So but establishing something tangible like a veggie garden that's going to serve you well in the future can be something that you can invest your time and energy in now as an antidote or a rebalancing of the eclipse energy. Second house is also sense of self-worth and the things you value. So you value personally, whereas the opposite house, the eighth house, is the things you value at a collective level. This is the things you value at a personal level. And so what do you value personally? Look at that and restructuring that and putting your attention there at this time. But also your self-value. How do you see yourself? Is what you're doing for a living bringing a sense of self-worth and self-value to your life? You might like to look at those questions now. How can you increase your sense of self-worth and self-value in life? By looking for a way to contribute, to heal, to serve. This is Virgo, the area of service. So you might be looking to serve humanity through creation of resources now. People going hungry right now, you might look to how can I serve, how can I give them food, maybe grow my veggie garden and then I can give them free pumpkins, or whatever. So how can I serve other people, and then in service, how can that make me feel like I'm contributing, like I have a sense of place and a sense of worth and a sense of value. So we're looking at our self-worth and our self-value here. There might be a way that you can access greater self-worth and self-value through service to other people at this time, Leos. And Leos, let's face it, you guys love to give. You are a generous sign. You love to receive. Yeah, we all love to receive, and Leos love to receive. But equally, Leo has this tremendous capacity to give love, to give warmth, to give affection. And now is the time. We need that so much on planet Earth right now, Leo. So do tap into that warm generosity of spirit that you guys have and use that in service to other people to increase their self-worth and self-value. But in doing so, you'll also increase your own self-worth and self-value. So there's just some ideas for where to direct your attention in order to rebalance everything that's going on in these other areas of life and to give a bit of redirectioning, if you like, or harmony back into your life when we're in the state of upheaval that this eclipse may actually bring us. So that's what I'm seeing in terms of all the signs. Thank you for sticking with me for this video. I know we've covered a lot of information. I hope it's all made sense and been clear to you. Let's close with a prayer now, and I am going to focus on my opening message and praying for that energy to be present. So thanks. Energy of love in the universe. This is an interesting time on planet Earth, and we know that the higher energies are watching what's happening on Earth now and how we handle things and how we navigate things. And we invite in the energy of love to surround the Earth right now, to be present on Earth right now, to envelope Gaia, the Earth, in a big, enormous, universal hug of love, because we really need it on Earth now. And we pray for all the women who are suffering on Earth at this time. We pray for all the women in positions of leadership and power right now. And we pray for the men on Earth who need to access and harness their feminine side and embrace their feminine side too. May we, each of us, reach into our feminine energy, the energy of kindness, the energy of softness, the energy of receiving, the energy of forgiveness. May we access those beautiful feminine qualities, every one of us, and lift the vibration on planet Earth to a greater level of love in order to counteract the difficult challenges that may lay ahead in 2021. And to counteract it with compassion, unconditional love, and the beauty that is needed. May we up-level through this time with grace and without suffering, without the trauma that is being spoken of and referred to right now. May we go the other way, and may we choose love above hate, all of us, particularly the people making decisions, particularly the people in leadership right now. May they choose love and grace and compassion over harshness and cruelty and violence. Guide us forward. It's difficult times, but we ask for the energy of love from the whole universe to surround the Earth, and the higher powers to be present right now to lift us up and to keep us all from harm, men and women. Particularly though, I remember women in vulnerable situations who are suffering a great deal, and we ask particularly for their protection at this very difficult time. And so it is. Well, thank you for joining me for this video. I will have another video for you next week, and we are entering fully into eclipse season now, so there will be more eclipse news for me coming up in the future, and I will look forward to joining you then.